get that interim title out of here. David Adelman is officially the Denver Nuggets' new head coach. Josh Kroenke announced earlier today in his press conference as we close the chapter on the 2025-24 NBA season for the Denver Nuggets. Was that the right decision? What else did Josh Kroenke have to say in his interview? What does the future look like for the Denver Nuggets? And we'll take a quick look at the Western and Eastern Conference Finals as we get closer to crowning a champion of the National Basketball Association. We'll dive into all that here on the Mile High Nugget Mine. How's it going, everyone? My name is Alex. I go by 5280 Nugget Mine on Twitter and Mile High Nugget Mine here on YouTube. And what a journey we've been through the past couple of hours. I'd say it's been expected news for sure, but a couple of other interesting nuggets that have come out from the Josh Kroenke interview. He got up today, did a presser. Every team does this at the end of a season just to kind of get a couple extra bits of news out there and really, like I said, close this chapter, close the book on the season as we get ready to move on for the work ahead in the offseason and beyond that. The biggest news, of course, being there's a new sheriff in town. David Adelman, he did enough to to take off that interim title and become the new head coach for the Denver Nuggets. This is a tricky one for me because I don't want to sit here and not acknowledge how good David Adelman was in the couple of games before the playoffs and throughout the playoff run. It's just, and this is not his fault at all. This is the Kroenke's fault entirely. You look at their track record and their history, and this is what they always do. They make you think for a second that maybe they'll look elsewhere. Not because it's the right decision, but because they want to do their due diligence to ensure that whoever comes in next will be the right fit for the Denver Nuggets. I'm not saying that David Adelman is not that. It just feels like this is their way of continuing to take the easiest path into the next steps without having to pay as much money. This is not David Adelman's fault. If anything, I'm very excited that we get to see what David Adelman looks like throughout an entire season as the head coach of the Denver Nuggets. The fear, of course, being this could be the last coach, unless things go horribly wrong, the last coach that coaches Nikola Jokic towards that NBA championship. And do we have the time, or do we really have the full belief that David Adelman will make this successful? That's the worry, is that you could have gone out and interviewed a list of several other people that were in contention of getting head coaching jobs. There's a couple of assistants that are out there, a couple of coaches that got fired as well from their previous posts. That wouldn't be horrible either. Look, I'm excited. David Adelman was fantastic. I have nothing but good things to say about the job that he did, given how horrible of a situation he got thrust upon into. It just feels like the Kroenkes are being cheap. And that sucks a little bit because you don't want that moving forward. This is the most important offseason in Nuggets history. Everyone's saying it. Yet instead of going out and maybe just poking around, seeing who's available, maybe who's going to become available, right? You just go off and you say, nope, this worked. It's going to work. Of course it's going to work. We're the Kroenkes. That's where the issue comes, I guess, is it's got nothing to do with David Adelman. It's got everything to do with the Kroenkes and their history of not just wanting to shell out a little more. But hey, maybe they'll be spot on. Maybe this will be perfect. David Adelman did so many incredible things in that playoff push. I truly think that it would have been a challenge for Michael Malone to have won that first round series. David Adelman, although it went 7, I thought did a phenomenal job adjusting, did a very good job at getting his players ready. What more can you ask for from an NBA coach? He has great familiarity with the players. He's been here for a long time. Now we'll get to implement his system the way that he wants it to see, the way that he wants to see it through. I think On defense, you could really feel his fingerprints. Malone didn't go to his zone as much, and Adelman was quick to go to the zone against the Thunder, and that presented a bunch of problems for the Thunder, except for Game 7. But, I mean, hey, you got to a Game 7 against a 68-win team. That's no laughing or, something to sneeze at. That's great job from David Adelman. Sometimes you just have to weigh the pros and cons, and the biggest con, in my opinion, is that we just don't know to a full extent what kind of a coach David Adelman will be, and just how good of a grip does he have in that locker room. Because at some point everyone loses it. We saw that with Malone. But what does he do if it starts to slip a little? What does he do if his players aren't playing the way they're supposed to? We don't know yet. And now, instead of maybe having someone that we might know what he's going to do, we just have to sit here and hope. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is I'm happy that it's David Adelman. I'm upset that the Kroenkes didn't just do a little more to find someone, or to at least look and see if there was something better available. But there was a debate on one of the radio stations that I listened to that was really well done. And one of the hosts was saying, man, wouldn't it be great if we just had a proven commodity come in here and just take it all away? And the producer on that show said, well, a lot of these coaches weren't proven commodities when they got in the NBA. Everyone is freaking out about JJ Redick and how great of a coach he was. Talk about unproven. You were a player turned podcaster turned coach. And everyone's going to sit here and scream like, oh, we knew it. We knew that JJ Redick was going to be a phenomenal coach. Sometimes you have to take the leap, and we're taking the leap right now. And for better or for worse, David Adelman, he is our new head coach. I'm going to ride with him. I believe that he'll be a good coach. I know I'm like contradicting myself here. I love that David Adelman is the coach. I hate that the Kroenkes didn't do a more thorough job just looking around. At the end of the day, I think David Adelman is the right choice. I just hate seeing the Kroenkes be this lazy and this cheap, and all of us just nod our heads and say, thank you, Josh. But that's enough on David Adelman. I'm very excited to see where it goes. A full season with him. Moving forward, he'll probably get a nice little contract. We'll see if the first year goes well. He'll probably get a good extension. That's all stuff that's going to come later on down the road. All right, let's talk about the Josh Kroenke presser, our end of season, our bookend on the 2024-25 season. Obviously, it started with the big announcement of our new coach. And then it got into Adam Mars from DNVR asked a phenomenal question, a little 2-in-1 action here. First, he asked, are the Nuggets close? Does he think, being Josh Kroenke, does he think that the Nuggets are close to where they need to be to win an NBA championship? And the answer was wishy-washy, but I feel like that's the best way to answer this kind of question, because you can't come out and say, no, we're super far away from a championship, when you took a 68-win team to Game 7, had a realistic chance to get into the Western Conference Finals, and I think all of us feel the same way, that if you got past the Wolves, you were winning another NBA championship. Regardless of the abundant and apparent, holes that the Denver Nuggets had, you had an opportunity to go and win a championship somehow. So to say that they're not close is very disrespectful and untrue. But to also say that they're close is a little disrespectful and also untrue. They are in the strangest in-between that you could possibly be, in my opinion, as a team, where your front 4 and 5, because there is question marks with some of your starters, those 3-4 people typically are enough to win you games. Then the questions come in, is the rest of your roster enough to win games? And beyond that, is it enough to win a championship? The roster clearly has enough talent to get past a first round, and almost enough to get into a second round situation. Hey, look at that. But to say that it's close and not close, it's very difficult. But I think Josh did a good job at acknowledging that yes, we're close in some areas, but we're also lacking in others, and that self-awareness is important in a coach. In an owner. He could have easily come out there and been like, yeah, look, we were so close to a Western Conference Finals. Of course we're close. But he acknowledges that there is a lot of holes on this roster and that they need to be addressed. the follow-up question that Adam had, or the two-parter, I should say, was then, what does involvement look like for him in this new era of Denver Nuggets basketball? Well, he has come out and said that he let the team down. Coming out of a championship, he went very hands-off. Because you will fall into the trap, and I can't remember the exact quote, I'll paraphrase, but he said, look, you can't really mess with, you just won a championship, you can't really mess with how things are going, because clearly they worked. That train of thought is good, but it leads to complacency. And as we saw, we were complacent, and then we turned into a literal toxic work environment. So to answer his involvement question, he says that he needs to find the right balance between, letting other people do their jobs, but also find the balance of, stepping in or butting in when he needs to. I think it's a very important thing to do. As difficult as it may sound, that's the right way, right? Sometimes you have to be hands-on. Sometimes you have to be in the locker room when things aren't going well, but you also can't micromanage. So who knows exactly what this new era of, involvement for Josh Kroenke will look like. I imagine that at least at the beginning, for a couple of months maybe, he'll keep an eye and make sure that we can avoid the disaster that was Malone Booth at the end there of their tenure. One of the things that was really important too, addressing the holes and needs, one of those, of course, being depth. Nikola Jokic himself came out in that last game, the Game 7 post-game interview, and basically said, yeah, look at all these other teams, the way they're doing it. They come at you with all these different people. Depth is very important. And Kroenke said, I heard Nikola Jokic's message loud and clear. That's fantastic. That is step one, is acknowledging that, yes, we have holes. Now he needs to go out and fill them. It's way easier to throw out all these fantasy names and ideas. Obviously, all of us want Bruce Brown back to some capacity. And the way that Bruce Brown's tweeting, you'd assume that a contract's already been finished by the two teams, or at least they're both in agreement that they want to get back with each other. It's difficult to just all of a sudden say, all right, here is the players that we need, let's go get them. I think I'm going to do a video later on down the road where it's here's my fantasy list of players that I think realistically can become Denver Nuggets and hopefully will become Denver Nuggets in order to guarantee a little more depth, not even just in the postseason, but in the regular season too, because that leads to a little more health moving forward when you don't have to play your guys 35, sometimes 40 minutes a night because your bench can't hold their own against the Washington Wizards, as a random example. So what will Kroenke do to get that depth? He didn't really make it very clear. He did make a very interesting comment regarding the teams that are currently in the finals, in the Western Conference and Eastern Conference finals, I should say. And that's that they were able to take their talent and grow them and teach them their role within a couple of years, and now they're flourishing. Look, maybe I'm reading into things. That sounds like a jab, in my opinion, to Michael Malone and Calvin Booth being at opposing ends of their, philosophies. Almost saying, well, if Malone had just coached up and gotten our younger players ready to go, we would have phenomenal depth and role players that were ready to go in the playoffs. And I can't fully disagree. You saw that Julian Strawther came in that Game 6 and randomly went crazy. Is it such a stretch to say that if Malone had done a better job at coaching him and getting him ready for these moments, that maybe Julian could have been more playable in games 1 through 5 instead of a random stint in Game 6 where he gets hot? Maybe. Is there a world where Peyton Watson has a little more of an offensive bag or a little more of an idea of what he needs to do outside of being a great, rim protector and defender? Maybe. One of the things that Kroenke was basically getting at is, look, one of the ways you can address depth is internally with what you have. You just have to be willing to, get it ready. So that might sound like a, nail in the coffin for going out there and grabbing a whole bunch of free agents. Maybe he wants to stick with the roster that he has. I think look, I'm on Twitter, as you all know. I think might have been Brendan Vogt from DNVR who made it very clear that Calvin Booth sounded very proud and optimistic that this current group maybe has a little more than what we all thought initially. But at the end of the day, I think the players that we have are a little too far behind where they need to be in order for me to comfortably say, yeah, you're right, this roster can come in next year and all of a sudden compete with the Oklahoma City Thunder, compete with the Timberwolves. That's wishful thinking, and who knows what all will transpire as we get deeper and deeper into the offseason. But depth is on the forefront of everyone's minds in the front office, amongst the coaching staff. Now it's just a matter of seeing how they go about tackling it. The other thing that he needs to now tackle is the general manager. I think a lot of us think it's very strange that before getting a general manager, you just stamp a head coach and say, this is our guy. The last time that a coach was already present and you got a general manager, they hated each other. I'm sure that being hands-on part will mean he's a little more involved once he gets a general manager with ensuring that these two, David Adelman, whoever the general manager is, see eye to eye in just about every single aspect, because it seems like if even just one of those things is off, it can throw everything into disarray. We don't need to look further out than just a couple months ago to see how bad it can get. When he was asked about the GM hunt, I think a lot of us were worried, at least I was very worried, that today David Adelman would sit down alongside Kroenke and the interim general manager that the Denver Nuggets have right now. His name escapes me. But I figured that both of them would sit down next to him and Kroenke would just grab them both by the shoulder and say, these are your new guys, because that's what they do. I have a little bit of hope that we actually are looking out for a general manager solely because David Adelman was announced as your new head coach, but you didn't get an announcement on a new GM. I feel like if he was already for certain that your GM is already in-house, he would have announced it today, and he did not. Doesn't mean that he can't all of a sudden just say, look, then this is our guy. But it gives me hope that he's at least looking and that they're doing their best to assemble people, look at different profiles and look at a whole bunch of different GMs and say, which one fits what we're trying to do right now. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that the GM hunt will go well. I can't sit here and say, oh yeah, I know a whole bunch of GMs that I would want. Obviously the one that everyone throws out there is Bob Myers, the old, one of the two GMs that the Golden State Warriors had when they went on their dynastic run. I'm going to trust that Kroenke is going to go out there and get a good team of people, and they're going to find the right GM for this version of the Denver Nuggets, and that he's going to be a very good presence for David Adelman and whoever this GM is to ensure that there is cohesion, to ensure that the Denver Nuggets entire front office, staff, all are on the same page. And that page is not a very difficult one to be disassociated with. At the end of the day, we're trying to win a championship. The GM hunt is going to be very, very interesting. I think that's the one, now that David Adelman is guaranteed to be here, the one that all of us are going to keep an eye on and wonder exactly what that looks like. So one of the questions, and I think it was the last question that was asked, Ryan Blackburn basically said, hey, look, man, all of us know it. You have no resources to go out there and, acquire new talent through the draft. You guys don't have any draft picks. Because of contract situations, it's going to be very difficult to trade a player like Jamal Murray away. What are you guys trying to do, or how do you plan on attacking this offseason or even trades to make your team better when you have such limited resources? And that's kind of when Kroenke gave the answer of like, look, we are limited, but we have talent here within ourselves that we might be able to coach up, and we might be able to get ready moving forward and it almost sounded like it was like, if that's the last resort that we have to come to. One of the questions, or the way that Ryan phrased it, and I'm glad that, because Kroenke didn't answer it immediately, one of the questions that he asked was like, why do you think free agents aren't signing here in Denver, even though we have multiple instances of a player that was just a little unproven, or that looked really good, but just never really found their role, or was able to really tap into their highest potential, like a Bruce Brown. Why aren't those guys coming here? Because when they do, and they play alongside Nikola, everyone all of a sudden looks at them and goes, that's an NBA player that I need on my team, and they get paid quite handsomely for it. I think there's a lot of players out there that are similar to a Bruce Brown that could use an opportunity on a team that will not only showcase their abilities, but will probably make them look like one of the best bench players in the NBA. Kroenke kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, look, I don't know why. That he's like, that's the pitch that we use. We go, look, you come play here, and a lot of places next year or the year after that are going to go, we need a guy like that on our team, and they're going to be willing to pay you quite a bit of money. I've had a lot of friends ask me that exact same question, in why does it feel like we can't land any free agents? Despite how good our core looks, despite how maybe before the GM situation and coach situation, how stable of a franchise we look to be. I think at the end of the day, it's just because we're Denver. And that's fine. Like, if anything, I use that as like, or they should use that as motivation to continue to get better. Like, hey, look, we want young, scrappy, and hungry. Get over here. People don't want to come play in Denver, even if the best player in the world plays in Denver. It's not fair, but that's just how things have shaked out for the majority of my life and people's before mine. No one wants to come play for the Denver Nuggets. All right, let's kind of get some last thoughts, or at least my last feelings towards this presser. We've heard from Kroenke twice now in the past 3 months, which is way more than what we're typically used to hearing from him. I'm used to hearing from him at the start of a year and at the end of a year. That's it. Never really in between. It was good to hear from him. More than anything, I was happy to hear how aware he is that this team is somehow simultaneously close to winning a championship and also far away from winning a championship. That there is, in fact, holes that need to be taken care of and addressed. That they know it's going to be difficult to address them given the limited resources that they have, but they are looking towards finding an effective way to attack this offseason to ensure that this next year the Denver Nuggets have the best chance that they have to win an NBA championship. And most importantly, I'm very glad to hear that it's not gone on him yet. We need to make sure that Nikola Jokic's legacy is taken care of. And the best way to do that is to ensure that we give him all the tools that he needs to succeed. I thought that was a great interview, or a great, press conference from Josh. Hopefully we'll be hearing from him soon with a, actual introductory press conference for David Adelman. I'm going to assume that if there is one coming, it's probably going to be after they hire a manager, so it'll be a 2-in-1 situation. Either way, I'm happy to hear that we're moving towards a new era here in Denver, and hopefully that means we can go right back to where I think we should be, and that's the best team in the Western Conference. Speaking of the Western Conference, Game 1 was played a couple days ago in Oklahoma City, And the game was tight for a while until it wasn't. But I think the one bit of discourse that has come out of game one, which is really funny because I feel like it should have come out in a lot of Denver's games, is the foul baiting from one Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, your new NBA MVP. Okay, I need to get it off my chest. I don't hate SGA. I don't love that the NBA rewards SGA style of play. Listen, if you find a way to cheese a game and it gets you to a certain level, or it gets you to a location that you thought you couldn't get to, sorry to use video game terms, but if you find an exploit like that and there is no repercussions to do it, do it. James Harden did it all the time, and it was frustrating as hell to watch. But if the NBA doesn't step in and say, hey, none of that, why would he stop? I get it. It's unethical. It's horrible hoops. I think it's horrible hoops as well. But I'm not going to fault someone for being like, oh, I'm going to score a lot off of this. No one's going to yell at me for it. These are the rules in place. I'm just taking advantage of them. Don't knock the hustle. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Truly, truly, truly hate the game. The NBA needs to do a better job at it. Anyway, back to the Western Conference Finals. There was a handful of plays, I know you've all have seen them at this point, where SGA not only is doing his best to instigate and initiate that contact, but there was some phantom calls too, primarily that one where he's getting guarded by, I think it was Nikhil. I think it was his cousin, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, and he just tripped on his way to the basket, and they called a foul. Obviously, it was reviewed and overturned because, there's no foul there. But the fact that that was going to be a foul, and the fact that if Minnesota didn't have a challenge, we were just going to have to live with that, is infuriating. It's going to be interesting to see how Game 2 gets officiated now that, even more so than before, the antics are a little more in light, and people are really going to be looking at every single call under a microscope, wondering, was that a good call? Was that not a good call? Are we foul baiting? Are we rewarding foul baiting? It's a very, very interesting, landscape over there, because both teams want to play very aggressive on defense. Both teams get all up on you. It just seems that the NBA is letting the Thunder get away with a little more right now than the Wolves did. I know 1 game sample size, but even in the Nuggets series, they were able to get away with way more than what Denver was able to get away with. And that, I think, is where fans are, having issues. In the Eastern Conference, we had an all-timer. No other way to put it. I was checking in here and there. I saw that New York went up pretty big with a few minutes left in the fourth, and I said, all right, let's go play video games. I get a phone call from my brother that was like, they're choking. The Knicks are choking. So I dropped what I was doing, and the last minute of that game is like a fever dream. If you haven't seen it by now, but I'm sure we all have, the Knicks choke away a 14-point lead on a ridiculous step-back jumper from the most overrated player in the NBA, Tyrese Halliburton. It was shades of the Kevin Durant game winner that could have been, shades of the Kawhi Leonard bounce in Toronto. It was a mix of things. But the shot goes up. It bounces straight up and just swishes right through. He didn't take enough of a step back for that to have been a 3. So the game goes into overtime tied. And the Knicks just could not shake the Indianapolis Pacers, who hit a couple of clutch shots. A Obi Toppin dunk becomes the dagger, putting away his former team in the Garden. You can't write better okay, that wasn't great basketball, but you can't write a better script for the end of a basketball game, especially in the Garden. Now they stole one. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a series. I don't think that the Pacers can continue to get away with it. I don't know what black magic they've, what voodoo ritual they have going on right now, because they've done that 3 times now, I think, where they were dead in the water with like less than 3 minutes and all of a sudden come back to win the game. I think that the Knicks will probably win the next game. I think they'll find a way to steal one in Indianapolis. I think this is a series that the Knicks should win. I don't know anymore. If you had asked me before yesterday's game, I think I would have given the edge to the Knicks in 6. Now I'm kind of scratching my head wondering, are these Pacers for real? So I'm gonna stick with it. I think the Knicks take this in 6. Absolute worst case, they take it in 7. But I have the Knicks winning this series. Over in the Western Conference Finals, I think selfishly, I want the Oklahoma City Thunder to win. I just have a thing against Minnesota sports. I'll be honest. Don't like the Wolves. I really don't like the Wild. I don't like the Vikings. The Twins, I don't really have anything to be mad at them for, but I'm going to be mad at them just because they play in Minnesota. I think after that first game, you can kind of see where the recipe for success is for the Thunder, and that really is just playing their aggressive style of defense and then wearing them out as the game goes on. It's not to say that I don't see a world where the Wolves find a way to steal game 2, which should be going on here shortly as I'm recording this. Matter of fact, I believe the game started. We'll do a quick little live look at the score. I was about to get a score update, and I get a phone call from family, because that's just how things go. Gosh, they're... How could they be so inconsiderate of me who's trying to record a video when they just asked me if I wanted food? Gosh. Okay, I was going to look and see if I could get a look at the Thunder score. Who should be playing. Yeah, they are halfway through the first, and the Thunder lead 19-13. If Minnesota can steal this game, and I think it's possible, if they can steal this game, I can see the Wolves winning this thing in 7. I really can. The Wolves that's just how they play. Anthony Edwards is phenomenal. I know I just got done saying that I hate Minnesota sports. I don't hate Anthony Edwards. I think that guy is a hooper, a real phenomenal player. The definition of a two-way athlete. Like, it's a great player. Just stinks that he plays for the Timberwolves. But my official prediction for this series, I'm going to go with the Oklahoma City Thunder winning this thing. Give me them winning it in 6. If they find a way to lose a game at home, however, I'm going to say Timberwolves in 7. But that's dependent on them losing. Look at me doing the sports media thing, getting a cop-out answer. What a wacky day. A big day, I should say, in Denver Nuggets, in the Denver Nuggets news sphere, where we have a new coach, we have an idea of what direction we want to move in, and I feel pretty confident that Kroenke will be making the right decisions, grabbing the people that he needs to ensure that Nikola Jokic will have a chance, not just next year, but a couple years beyond that, at winning one more championship, maybe 2 more championships. At the end of the day, I just want Nikola Jokic to win. I think we owe that to him. A couple years ago, I was content with just 1 championship. Not anymore. I'm going to be greedy, and I think the rest of us should be greedy as well for Jokic's sake. A lot of stuff to cover. A lot more things are coming for sure. I will try to keep us updated here on this channel now that I have this set up to kind of go and do that and react to the news that's dropping. However I see that news, or however I feel about that news, I want to come and be very honest about things. So we'll see what's to come. Maybe we'll do a video for the finals once we get our the teams in that as well, to fully react to both series and to give predictions for the finals here in a couple weeks. But it's going to be fun. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to keep talking Denver Nuggets. There is no off season in sports media. This will be fun. This is Alex from the Mile High Nugget Mine, signing off.